Okay, so let's just go ahead and create a method for our permissions, or on our permissions model that will allow us to give each user we create the read permission. Okay, so I will simply go to my permissions.go. Okay, and currently we only have get all users for, and let's create a new method. I'll just copy this since it's pretty much the same. Oops, let's just copy this. Okay, so I'll bring all of this down here and we'll create a new method, but this method will be called add for user. Okay, so add for user. Now what we need to provide this method is the user ID who we will give read permission to or write permission to. Alright, and so we also need to provide the list of permissions. Okay, and so we'll simply say codes and then we'll give a slice of type string. Okay, and if everything works out, great. If not, we will return an error. Okay, so that's our signature. Okay, so let's remove all of this, and so we need to write our query. Okay, so how do we write a query that inserts permissions into our database? Well, we'll follow the same pattern that we used when we wrote the raw SQL. And so we'll simply say insert into users underscore permissions. Let's spell that correct. Users permissions. And then we'll simply say select, right, the user ID, so $1, comma, and then I will say permissions dot ID from where? Well, from the permissions table where the permissions dot code is any of the following. So I'll say any, and then the array $2. Okay, and that's it. This is similar to what we did with the raw SQL. So insert into the user's permissions table the ID, and of course the ID of the user and the ID of the permission code. So if it's read and write, then we will get the IDs for read and the IDs for write, and then we'll place them in there. Okay, great. So with that query out of the way, right? So any is new to you, so you could always look up to see how any works, but it's basically grabbing the array and checking to see if there are any thing that they can use for the permission. Okay, so we will simply have our context, of course, 3 seconds, so I don't need to type that. And the only thing I do need to type, apart from my closing curly brace, of course, is how to execute it. And so that's easy enough. So we will simply say m.db, of course, dot exec. Oops, made a mistake there. Colon. Okay, so m.db dot exec with context, and then we will provide our context, we'll provide our query, and it says we need to also provide the query parameters, so the arguments, right? So we'll provide the user ID, and we will simply say pq dot array. Okay, so remember this, to use this we need to make sure we insert libpq. Okay, again, you've used this function many times in the past. Okay, and so now we will simply provide the codes. Okay, now obviously there might be errors, so we'll just return the error and deal with it in our handler. Okay, this is it. This is how we can add permissions to users when we create them. Okay, instead of having to do it in SQL in the actual Postgres instance. Alright, so we leave this here, and what I will do in the next video is to update the handler to be able to call this method when we are creating a user. I'll see you in that video.